All right, we are live. Oh yeah, I got a nice little preview. Cool, cool, cool. So today I'm giving advice on building income streams. So how to build your passive income streams. I'm giving 5 tips on what I would do or what I did and what I recommend if you want to build passive income streams. So let me introduce myself for those of you who are new, who have never been on my live before. I am Latanya Carla. If it's your first time on my live, I talk a lot about time freedom and money and raising leaders of independent thought in your children. So we are creating legacies over here. And so if that's your bag, you are in the right place. Um, Before we get started, I just want to let all of you know I'm live on Instagram. I'm also live on Facebook. I have 2 openings starting in June for people who want to launch their passive income stacks to 10K in 90 days. And this week I'm opening 10 free calls for anyone who is interested in getting my support. And if you are interested in getting started in June, just type freedom in the comment and I will send you the link to the complimentary calls. All calls must be booked by Friday at 9 p.m. in order to get that complimentary call. So if you are ready to get started, give me some gems in the chat. Give me some diamonds, some hearts, or something so I know that you guys are ready. And I'm also going to start off with a poll. And then, I want to share a little bit of my backstory for those of you who may not be familiar. All right. So, put a 1 in the chat if you're creating passive income stream. If you've created a passive income stream before, or you're creating one, or you try to. You've created one or you tried to. Put a 1 in the chat. Okay, so that's some of you. Um, if you've never created a passive income stream, put a 2 in the chat for me. Okay. So one thing is that I think creating passive income can be overcomplicated sometimes by some people. I think in the beginning, I think something important to know is that passive income streams are not always passive right away. Like when you first are building it, you do have to put in some time and some effort into it in the beginning and build it in such a way that it can become passive very quickly. And I have been an entrepreneur for 9 years, running my own business. I've been coaching for about 12 years. And I've built businesses many different ways. So, one way in particular that I got the most frustrated with is that I did eventually get burnt out, is just like trading time for money and not really and doing it all on my own and not really being able to step away from it and let people help me and get support in areas that I needed. And that was a big lesson I had to learn, because back in 2018, I had built a 6-figure business. I had built a 6-figure agency, but I was doing a lot of that work myself. And I eventually just burnt out. I was making money, but I was exhausted and I didn't have a life. And so I ended up selling that business and took some time to kind of figure out what I wanted business to look like for me. And so after a while, I realized that, like, one, it pays. It's smart to just pay somebody to help you. I think, like, a lot of times when we start a business, we're like, okay, I'm going to just do it all myself. And then when I get to a certain amount of money, I'm going to hire somebody to help me. And, when I can pay myself this much, then I'll hire someone. And I think you really should be thinking about it as hiring somebody as an expense. And so that's like my first tip, is as early as possible, when you're thinking about building an income stream, think, how can I get someone else to do it? That's number one. Like, how can I get Can I get someone else to do that? Can I automate this? Can I delegate this? Is there some way I can pay someone to do this instead of me doing this? Right. And that is like super key if you're trying to create something passive. I think most businesses can become passive. There are many people who own large companies and they're not in their company every day because that's passive money for them, because they hire people to manage that business for them. And so you can create a business that way. Almost any business can become passive if you are intentional about creating it that way. So one important step is thinking, who else can do this, right? There's a book that I'm always recommending books. If y'all if y'all are new here, I'm always recommending books. So there's a book called The Entrepreneur Myth by Michael Gerber, I believe it is. The E-Myth. If you've never read that book, you should read that book, because that book is really teaching you how to not be the technician in your business and to be the visionary in your business. And I think that's a key to passive income, is that you need to become the visionary and not the doer, not the person who's doing all the technical work of building that business. So, getting someone else to do it. Think of that person as a part of your expenses. Just paying someone to do that job for you so that you can eventually not be so involved in it. Number 2 is to have a long game mindset. And what I mean by a long game mindset is that building passive income streams are not some sort of get rich quick kind of thing. You really have to think about it as something that you can build out in the long term, even if you're not going to be the person involved in the business every single day for the long term, right? So same thing, just building a team, thinking about it as like, okay, right now I'm putting in however many hours to build this business, but eventually I'm going to be working less and less and less in this business. Some people jump into wanting to build a passive income stream that allows them to be hands off right away, and that's just not a reality. Like it just doesn't work like that. Now you could probably do a lot less. Like for instance, when I started the Airbnb doing Airbnb arbitrage, which is, for those who don't know, Airbnb arbitrage is when you rent from someone and put that rental property on Airbnb. So I started off being like a co-host for like a super host on Airbnb who I was able to learn like a lot of how they ran their properties, and they were very hands off. Like I was pretty much the person that people contacted if they had any issues, if they had any problems in their property. So a lot of the times they weren't even involved. So that's how I started, was as a co-host, and then eventually got my own properties to do Airbnb, and then eventually built the Airbnb laundry business on top of that. Oh, hey girl. How are you? So built a laundry business on top of that, because when I was doing the Airbnb, when you're turning over an Airbnb property, it's a lot of laundry that has to be done for whatever guests leave. There's always a lot that's like one of the biggest things about turning over a property. Yeah, you have to have it cleaned and all that stuff, and a lot of times you just hire somebody to clean it, but no one really thinks about how much laundry actually goes into like washing comforters, washing all those linens. And so I decided to hire someone to do that for me, and eventually realized like that could be a whole business, and start contacting other Airbnb hosts to see if they needed that service. And that's how I built that business on top of the Airbnb business. So when I talk about like passive income stacking, that's what I mean by that. So passive income stacking is like building one income stream on top of another so that it doesn't create more work for you, but you also are creating multiple streams of income through those businesses. So you could have an Airbnb business and then have an Airbnb laundry business and have an Airbnb cleaning business if that's what you wanted to do, because there's so many income streams that could come from that one specific area. So that's number 2. If you're just stepping in the first tip I gave was to get someone else to do it. If you're creating passive income streams, think from the beginning how you can get someone else to do it. Also have a long game mindset that like in the beginning, you are going to be putting more hours and time into building it. But you can, if you're thinking of how you can delegate or how you can automate certain things, and if you're thinking about how this would look in the long run, you can find yourself out of that business fairly quickly. Number 3 is to start lean. So starting lean means that keeping your expenses low as possible, as low as possible. So where most of your expenses should be going is probably hiring help, right? But there also are software and services and things that you're probably going to need to run that business. Most income streams can run, I think, if you at bare minimum, you need 3 things. You need some sort of email or SMS service to, stay in touch with your customers and build that network. You also need one thing I recommend because it's so robust and it's next to nothing in terms of cost is Canva Pro, if you can get it, because Canva Pro is about $13 a month and you can literally do everything in Canva Pro. For your email, I recommend MailerLite because it has a lot of features for next to nothing as well. Canva, one of those features, like you can build your website, you can build your logo, you can do everything, all your branding in that, one thing. So that's something that I really love about Canva is that you can have a whole website in Canva for $13. You know what I mean? And not just that for $13, but so many things that you can do in there. You can create all your social media content, everything for $13. So that to me is a steal. And the third thing, let me go into my notes real quick so I can make sure I remember everything that I'm saying to you guys. Give me 1 second. I want to go into these notes because these notes have everything in there. So, what did I say? I said Canva. I said, Stripe. So, I couldn't think of what my third one was. Stripe account. Now, Stripe account is free. And you can create all your products pretty much in Stripe so that you can create your pages, you can do all your pricing and all that stuff in Stripe. Stripe is also great if you are new in business. Let's say you are just like testing out a business and you haven't created an LLC yet, or you're just trying to see if this is a viable business, right? If you have a Stripe account can at least show some initial transactions, which is very important when it's time for you to decide on funding and things like that, because they want to see some sort of accounting for initial transactions. Eventually, you definitely want to have a business bank account when you create your LLC and you have your EIN. You want to create a business bank account. But if you are just starting out, having the Stripe account will show some initial transactions, and that's always great for when you're ready to get some funding for your business. Okay, and so. Start as lean as possible. Altogether, that all might cost you $150. You can get MailerLite for a whole year for $108, I think, and then you pay Canva $13 a month. I feel like that's a very small expense to start off with, because all of those features can be used if you're starting as lean as you can. All of those things can be used to start almost any income stream. Every single income stream that I've started, every single business that I started, whether it was passive or not, Those are all things or some version of that I needed for my business. I've been using Canva probably since 2014. And that is like a much needed software that I use, for almost everything. So, number 4 is reinvesting your revenue. So, number 4, reinvest your revenue. When we're building businesses, a lot of times we're thinking about what we can do with that money right away. Like, we are so ready to leave our jobs. We're so ready to like start living the lifestyles that we want to live. And I get that. Like, I totally get it. Right? I left my job when I first started my business in 2014. I left my job, no, 2015. I left my job 9 months after starting that business because it was making money and I was just like ready to go. I couldn't wait to get out of there. And it was doing well, but in hindsight, I wish I had stayed just a little bit longer because I would have been able to reinvest that money into, more help, into scaling that business. That business took a longer time to scale because I needed that money to pay my bills and to cover some of my expenses, my personal expenses. When if I had stayed at my job, I wouldn't have needed it for that. And I could have used the money that it made to actually scale it even bigger and even better, right? So you want to reinvest as much of your revenue from your business as you can so that, you can continue to grow, it can scale, and you can continue to build a team that allows you not to be so involved in the day-to-day activities of the business, right? So that is very important. Reinvest your revenue. Reinvest your revenue. And my last tip is to build multiple income streams from one. So I talked about this a little bit earlier about stream stacking, right? I call this stream stacking because you're stacking one income stream on top of another. What we don't want to do is create income streams that burn us out and exhaust us. We do not do that here. We do not create, we are not for burnout over here. Okay. So if you are going to create income streams, the best way to do, or multiple income streams, the best way I believe to do that is to stack streams on top of each other. And I use the example of starting off as an Airbnb host and doing Airbnb arbitrage, but also building a laundry business on top of that business, which allowed me to not only get guests for the units that I had, but also I was working with Airbnb hosts to help them when it's time to turn over their properties. So I was getting money on both sides, right? And so that's a smart way to stack your services. I can always offer more services on top of another. It's like doing Airbnb and then doing Turo, right? You can offer rental cars on top of, your Airbnb services, right? Or another income stream is renting out baby gear. That's something that I've done as well. My kids are my youngest is now about to be 3. I have strollers and high chairs and all these things that like now because I'm doing Airbnb, I can rent that as an addition to what they might need. If they need things like that, I can offer that, and so I've made money from doing that as well. There are so many ways to stack income streams, and you will realize that you can create multiple income streams on top of another without overextending yourself and feeling exhausted and feeling burnt out. So that is something that you want to be thinking about as you build income streams if you are wanting to build multiple. Quick word I want to say about building multiple income streams. A lot of times people will tell you to focus on one thing at a time. And I think that is true in most cases. In most cases, you should focus on one thing at a time. If you feel like it's going to overwhelm you, then you should do one thing at a time. But I'm saying that to build if you do it the way that I'm saying you should do it in terms of stacking your streams, it does make a difference, and it does almost feel like you're building one, even though you're building multiple. You're building multiple streams that can work independently, but they can also work together. And I think that's the smartest way, because you can offer services on top of other services, and that allows all your income streams to produce income. Or you can offer them independently and they still produce income. So they kind of promote each other, and I think that's important to have if you're going to build multiple. I think that's the best way to do it. If you're going to build multiples that don't relate at all, that's going to be a lot. That's when I do recommend one. Start with one, build it up, let it become profitable, that you can step away from it, and then build the next thing that is unrelated to the first thing, right? If you are doing it that way, I do recommend one at a time. If you are stacking income streams, which means they are related to each other, then you can definitely build multiple and it not feel like you're extending yourself more than what you are already doing. Another word I wanted to point out, I was talking earlier about starting lean, and the 3 things that I feel like you should definitely have in your business when you're starting, being Canva, some sort of email, SMS service. I recommended MailerLite for those of you who are thinking about what you might need for that, and having a Stripe account. I like Stripe because it's become more user friendly. It wasn't always, but it's more user friendly now. And you can pretty much create everything you need in there. You can create payment pages and all that stuff, which can cost a lot. If you did it through like, what's it called? ClickFunnels, or like any other service like that, where you have to, or Sam Card or Thrive Card or anything like that, where you're paying, you need pages where people can make a purchase from. Those can cost. But with a Stripe account, it doesn't cost you anything. It's pretty much free. You can just, create that without having to spend a lot of money. So I talked about those 3 things that I feel like everybody should have. One thing I also said about the Stripe account is that those initial transactions really help you when it's time for you to think about funding. And as I was saying, when we're talking about automating and delegating, we're talking about getting someone else to do it. I am a firm believer in other people's time and other people's money. Get someone else to do it who really needs that gig, like somebody who really wants to do that work while you build a business. They can actually do all the technical things that you don't really have time for. You may think that you do, but I'm telling you, building a business there's enough for you to do than to have to do all the technical day-to-day things of it. Focus on growth and scale. That's where you should be focusing on how to grow it, how to scale it, how to double what you're already making in that business. And that is by growing a team, automating what you can automate, and that is by reinvesting your money so that you can do that, right? Use other people's time, other people's money. Make sure you have that Stripe account, that you are showing those transactions. Invoice everything. Even if you pay yourself out of your business, invoice yourself. Do an invoice and pay yourself from that invoice, okay? Because that is a transaction in your bank account. You want your bank account to look active. You want those transactions to look active. You can also do invoices through Stripe. I think that is a new feature in Stripe. I don't think they've had that for a long time, but you can also do invoices. Invoice yourself. Okay? Let that transaction show up so that you can show that you're making money in that business. What else? I think that is it. Other people's money, OPM, right? We want to get that. We want to be building a business with that in mind. How can we get some funding? And right now is a great time for that. There are a lot of grants available for new businesses, even if you don't have any sales. Even if you haven't made any sales yet, there are grants for you. You do not have to be some full-fledgling, super profitable business in order to get funding. You don't. And so if that's something that you want to know more about, if you want to know more about how you can get funded, how you can get grants in your business, how you can build multiple income streams, how you can scale it quickly, how you can build it to 10K months in the next 90 days, like, which is very doable. I'm telling you. I know that 10K is like the I made it number for a lot of people. If I can get to 10K per month, this business is gonna feed me for a while. And for the most part, that is true. But a lot of people struggle to get to that 10K, and I even struggled at first. When I was building that 6-figure business and burning out, that 10K a month was hard to get. Okay, but now that I've done it, it gets easier to do again and again, and that's how I've been able to build multiple income streams that generate that again and again. There's a formula to it. There's a science to it, and you can absolutely do it in 90 days. With my help, of course, I can actually help you do that. So if you're interested, please do sign up for one of my calls. I have 10 available. I have 2 spots left for June. Okay. If you sign up after that, if those 2 spots fill up, I'm doing 10 calls this week. If those 2 spots fill up, I won't be able to start with new people until July. So hop on those calls. If you want that information, leave a comment in the chat. Put freedom in the chat, and I will send that link over to you. Okay? Thank you guys for being here with me. Thank you guys for joining me on this video, and I will see you again. Bye.